My mother-in-law showed up unannounced at 6 a.m. with a suitcase. I thought she was moving in. She was saving my marriage. The doorbell rang at 6 a.m. on a Saturday, and I already knew it was going to ruin my weekend. My wife Rachel was still asleep, or at least pretending to be, which had become her default state whenever I was in the room. We'd barely spoken in 3 weeks. Not since the fight about me missing our anniversary dinner for a work emergency that turned out to be my boss's idea of team building. I shuffled to the door in my boxers, ready to tell whoever it was to go away. Instead, I found my mother-in-law Gloria standing on the porch with a massive suitcase and that tight-lipped expression she reserved specifically for me. My stomach dropped. 8 years of marriage, and this woman had never visited without at least 2 weeks' notice. Now here she was at dawn with luggage. "Gloria, what are you doing here?" She pushed past me without answering. "Make coffee. We need to talk." I'd never liked Gloria, and I was pretty sure the feeling was mutual. From the day Rachel introduced us, she'd looked at me like I was something stuck to her shoe. She questioned every decision I made. Why was I renting instead of buying? Why did I take that job instead of the other one? Why wasn't I giving her daughter the life she deserved? Every holiday became an interrogation. Every phone call between her and Rachel ended with my wife looking at me differently, like her mother had reminded her of all the ways I was falling short. So when Gloria sat down at my kitchen table and started unpacking files from her suitcase, I braced for the worst. Divorce papers, maybe. Some kind of intervention to convince Rachel to leave me. "Sit down," she said without looking up, "and stop making that face. I'm not here to destroy your marriage. I'm here because my daughter called me crying at midnight, and I won't let her make the same mistake I did." I sat. Gloria spread out what looked like old photographs, letters, and a worn leather journal. 32 years ago, I almost divorced Rachel's father, she said quietly. We'd been married 5 years. He worked constantly, missed important moments, forgot anniversaries. Sound familiar? I said nothing. She continued. "I called my mother, told her I was done. She talked me out of it, told me to give him one more chance, to communicate instead of punish. I didn't listen. I filed the papers, started packing. She pushed a photograph toward me. A younger Gloria, maybe 30, standing next to a man I'd never seen. That's William, Rachel's father. He died in a car accident 3 days before our divorce was finalized. I never got to tell him I'd changed my mind. Never got to apologize for shutting him out instead of fighting for us." Her voice cracked. "Rachel doesn't know any of this. She thinks her father and I were happily married until he died. I let her believe that because the truth was too ugly." I stared at the photograph. Rachel had his eyes, his chin. I'd seen pictures of her dad before, but always formal ones. This was different. He was laughing, arm around Gloria, looking at her like she was his whole world. "I've watched you two for 8 years, Gloria said. "I've been hard on you because I see William in you. The work obsession, the inability to prioritize what matters, and I see myself in Rachel. The resentment building, the silence instead of conversation, the slow drift toward the exit." She opened the leather journal and pushed it toward me. "This was William's. I found it when I was cleaning out his things after the accident." Read the last entry. My hands trembled as I picked it up. The handwriting was messy, rushed. "Gloria doesn't know I'm planning a surprise trip for our anniversary. 2 weeks in Paris, the honeymoon we never had. I've been working overtime for months to afford it. I know she thinks I've forgotten her. I haven't. I just wanted to prove I could give her everything she deserves." I couldn't breathe. Gloria wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "He was working himself to death trying to surprise me, and I was upstairs packing my bags, convinced he didn't care anymore. We were both so stupid, so proud, so unwilling to just talk to each other." She closed the journal gently. "I've spent 30 years regretting that I never asked him what was wrong, that I assumed the worst instead of fighting for the best. I will not watch my daughter repeat my mistake." She stood up and zipped her suitcase. "Rachel thinks you don't love her anymore. She thinks you've checked out of the marriage. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know you haven't told her about the promotion you turned down because it required relocation. I know you haven't told her about the savings account you've been building for the house she's always wanted. I know you've been suffering in silence just like William did, thinking your actions would speak louder than words." I looked up at her, stunned. "How do you know about all that?" She almost smiled. "Because I've been paying attention. Someone had to." Gloria left an hour later without saying goodbye to Rachel, just squeezed my shoulder, told me not to waste any more time, and drove away. I sat at that kitchen table until Rachel came downstairs, confused and half asleep, asking why there were old photographs everywhere. I told her everything, the promotion, the savings, the reasons I'd been distant. Then I told her about her father, about Paris, about the journal. She read his last entry 3 times, sobbing so hard she couldn't speak. We talked for 6 hours straight, something we hadn't done since we were dating. That night, I booked 2 tickets to Paris for our 9th anniversary. We went last spring and scattered some of William's ashes from the top of the Eiffel Tower, the trip he never got to take. Gloria still criticizes me at every holiday, but now I understand why.